These sessions are designed to empower us spiritually to live in a world of cyclone fences that have no regard for your soul. The world is a demonic prison camp according to all the spiritual traditions in the world. It actually is a hell. With that in mind, we designed the sessions to show us how to live bravely, happily, freely, peacefully, powerfully, and to employ our many, many, many spiritual gifts throughout the day and night, throughout the evening hours. They will just come to you because there is a God, so there's no reason to fear the cyclone fences. You can pierce the night with a lighted sword. You can step through the cyclone fences because we're not a body. We're not prisoners of anything. We are a soul. We're in touch with the far distant reaches of the heavens, always. This is what spiritual consciousness is about and what the everyday person has never had a clue of. When you're off in your cave alone, whether it's 2,000 years ago in Israel or in the mountains of Tibet or India, or it doesn't matter where, the great Sufi mystics or Christian mystics from the Middle Ages, they're not little people trying to be humble. They have joined with God in eternity. And they know that this world does not care, does not want them, does not need them. They know that it is a hell. They're very clear on it. But because they're so humble, it's hard to research this in their writings and see what they're really saying. Because they're nobody to themselves. Because before God, we are nobody. And there is a God. And that's the secret message of today, why we can fight the battlements of the demonic forces in the world with ease and with certainty and clarity. These many, many gifts will arise and move through us through the day, through the evening hours, as we say. You're not trapped in time. You're not trapped in circumstance. This presence that we call God, divine providence, this true humility of the universe. God is a person, infinitely humble, if you can imagine that. And yet God is God. As soon as you have these experiences of the Christian mystics, cosmic consciousness, enlightenment, nirvana, whatever, it's beyond breathtaking. The world, there's no breath. As soon as you have the first inkling of this experience, you're shot like in a spaceship beyond the heavens, beyond the universes, into the actual presence of the Almighty. Infinite oceans and golden waves of glory, beyond the word ecstasy. There are no human words, or I do not have them, to begin to explain the compound senses. In other words, we use the idea of the sun being a radioactive device, that a fistful of the sun weighs the same as a mountain because it's compacted, the nuclear presence of it, the electrons, whatever, they're all like this, because there's so much of it collected in one big fireball, right? So when you're spiritual, although you never divulge this to anyone, every inch of your fiber, you're aware of this eternal glory, our Father God. And you're simply humble and kind and contrite and ready to help anyone and everyone all day, every day. And you can. You can get absolutely quiet. You can listen to people. You can do healings. You can relax anyone. You can train anyone in anything. You have an instant regard for a higher order of being that involves direct perception. It's beyond genius. It's what genius generally entails. Someone who's gifted in a certain area, they can touch a more subtle, or more highly defined intelligence and understanding, or wisdom, or creativity. The creative mind, if you read the writings of any great author or thinker or artist, they're very, very brilliant people. Imagine being in touch with the creative mind of the infinite universe itself, of God, not of the material universe, which is the mistaken perception. It is hell. It's emptiness. You're going to a spaceship out there. Where's your ecstasy? Where's that compounded sense of understanding the true universe, you see in the first moment of what they call illumination, puff, you know that you're not here. You can still communicate to people because that's why you're here. You gave up your part in eternity to teach, to instruct, to heal, to care, to help retrain the thinking mind of people in the world who believe the world is real. So we're here to help decent, humble, kind, erudite, spiritual beings who are trapped in this world. So when we see somebody that contrite and humble, no matter what the circumstance of their life, reach in through the clouds and let them know they're not alone. That's your job. That's why you were born. Van Gogh said that your profession is not what you make a living by. He said your profession is something you do with such passion that it becomes spiritual in calling. That's why you look at Gabron's painting, or Gabron, all these people, there are many, many great artists, at Van Gogh, like I've done in a museum at different times, and just, I'm transfixed, I can't move. I've seen all the holy relics in the East and so on, and wherever, all around the world, my own people is, and you look at it, you can't move. This man put the beauty of God on canvas with some paint, and you're like, how did you do that? Well, it took him 20 years to figure out how to do it, how to subtly figure out with his penciling in, with his charcoal, the lines and the figure, the same as Monet or Rembrandt. They spend a lifetime trying to create a beauty that they sense spiritually within. And if you were to read their writings and so forth, you would find they all have this sense of a higher order of being. This isn't about that kind of art. This is about you as a divine work of art, as a holy creation, as a person who, once you hear this message, realize you do not have to, you're not alone, and all the forces that have assailed your fine senses from birth are not meant to be. They are garbage. The whole world is garbage. In a spiritual sense, I'm not castigating it like you have to fight it or it's terrible. It's garbage. In other words, it's nothing. It's not worth your time. You don't need to dwell on it. You can become quiet, your quiet hours, knowing that the most important thing you'll ever have to do is to be alone in your room. And you'll disappear into this twilight, into the sunlit uplands, beyond that into these many, many lands of glory, of wonder, of kindness, of truth, of wisdom. You'll see God's face. Isn't that worth a few hours alone? There is a God. You are God's offspring. You're a light shining in a dark place, at a dark time. And it's not about any socio-political ideation whatsoever. It's about you being a divine instrument if you choose to be such. Choose. We're not going to help anyone out there in any regard whatsoever if we do not have this. Because everything else is a false land. It's a hyped up promise. We'll get this, we'll get that. It's a demonic casino. And you don't fight it with physical force or with anger. You fight it with equanimity, with looking right through it and realizing the consciousness of the universe, being God, is given to you every moment of every day. It's so subtle, so endlessly wonderful. And aside from the joy and the ecstasy and the presence and the many blessings and gifts you'll be given, it's the idea that we do not have to fight. on their terms, that we never have to fight on their terms. We don't have an opinion about anything. Because everyone in the world has 1,000 opinions, and they're all wrong if taken to fruition and looked at it through the spiritual light, through this divine prism where all those colors of the rainbow appear, and then something on the other end of the rainbow that surpasses love itself. Holy Father God, our friend, our self, our soul. God gives Godness away. That's what God is. It's an infinite spiritual presence. And this world will disappear in your thinking mind in the first moment of your illumination experience. Everyone listening to this has had these at different times in our lives, haven't we? Might have been 7 years old after a rainbow, and there's just this openness. And we've all been browbeaten in different ways to believe this or that about ourselves. I've certainly had it every moment of my life. I've never had anyone, one friend 40 years ago, that actually listened to me or helped me with my spiritual work. And because of that, I'm here. And I'm not saying this out of any pain or trauma. I'm saying that the world is that lost. And that's why the holy ones who read about, whether it's Saint Teresa or whatever, there's so many. You read their writings, they've kind of shrunk off into maybe start a little school or do healing or some mystical path they've taken, whatever. But it's not because there's something wrong with them or they're so nice and they want to be good to people. The idea is that the world dissolved in their mind and they realize it's not here. There is only God. That's all there ever was God. There is nothing else. Or you're infinitely stupid to be caught in Satan's casino. It's like with people, I know in myself, I've taught people to listen. I've done it with many, many combat veterans. Just sit there, listen, and let them go on, because I'm able to be the same way I look at God. And listen to them, non-evaluative, empathetic, just, then what happened? God, I thank you. And then this horrible thing happened, you don't react a hairline, and the person will let it go. And you never bring it up again. You acknowledge that you heard it. And if we did that with one another, the world in 5 minutes would change if everyone just simply listened to one another. It's not spiritual at all, but it's conquering the thinking mind. The mind just wants to look for something. It's like your fingers. You want to touch it and it goes somewhere. Is that there? Your mind is just looking for something. In Zen Buddhist meditation, we talked about in the last class, was you exteriorize your thinking mind. You're instantly, it doesn't think anymore. I'm looking at that tripod here, the foot of it, and I could look at that for the next 10 days, literally. I'm not saying this lightly or proudly. It's you disappear. There are no days, there are no times. There's no thinking mind. There is a God. You are God's presence. Please, for the sake of those you love and care for, attend to these gifts and faculties that are inborn. And then you'll see that everything is a mistaken perception, that this force called Satan projects, all the, like Plato called the shadows on the wall, all the socio-political, in other words, everyone has an opinion about this and that. Forget opinions and you're very quiet, you'll have the power of God. And then this time around you can fulfill your destiny finally. Wouldn't it be nice to walk away from the pain, the trauma, the accusations, the needs, the wants, the secret lusts and pains and all that? Wouldn't it be nice just to go outside for no reason, for no purpose, just to breathe? Wouldn't it be nice to see him? The only God. To know him. Our only God. To become him. That's the gift. And if we choose anything less, then we choose the madness, and we are the cause of the wars, of the rapaciousness of people, of the wholesale trading of souls. It's us. if we look through it at our Father, quietly, humbly, and eruditely, because it takes a lot of intelligence and awareness to keep you going through the day and understand how this world works. And you face in the early months of this many, many trials of our psyche, where the devil will try to get you off in this way or make you feel bad or guilty about something, or you have to need to do something. God will attend to everything. A great saint once said that divine love always has and always will meet every human as well as spiritual need. And when we know God and know that God is God, it'll all be taken care of. There's nothing to do. But God will rebuild us inside, so we are a spiritual presence. And you'll hide this. You don't talk about it in the supermarket. But you're gracious and you're kind, and you avoid the different, battlements of the enemy. There's always somebody coming at you to hit you in the head with an axe, always. And if you know that and you're quiet about it, it's like my buddy Rob's friend is a very, very famed warrior, and he's the most powerful man I've ever met, and so many battles and so on. And he would simply look, threat, no threat, no matter what was coming at him. And then if he told his men on the horn or whatever to tell him, do this or that, they never heard tension in his voice, even while they're in the battlefield, because he's trained to only react at the very moment you have to. And until then, you're quiet. And you'll have the same thing in your spiritual warriorship. You'll know when you have to do something or when you don't have to do anything. And when you're illumined, you don't have to do anything. And the enemies will all go up in a little puff of smoke when you sit by the river long enough. You'll watch the bodies of all your enemies pass by. In other words, like we said last week, the enemies being in perception, all these threats, all these temptations. We're born here in a darkened time, and if we're spiritual, it's because we know the only problem is spiritual identity. If you know you are the emanation of the Almighty, it's very humbling and very natural. It's as natural as breathing. Talk about humility, it's like if people think they get that mixed up with humiliation. Humility is like a endless shoreline looking off into an endless sea. You're both in awe of one another. It's just shockingly clear and wonderful, and it never ends. You're uncircumscribed by your sensory equipment. You look through, like we said earlier, with direct perception, you'll understand everything. Not my friends in the room here, but beyond them, there's a sea of mist. It's the very presence and the body of Almighty, everlasting, infinite God, our Father, and our friend. And God will be with us every moment of this battle. It's battlefield Earth, right? And if you look through it, it's over at that moment. That's what illumination is. But when you have these spiritual experiences, they're so literally infinite presence you'll feel, so you're going to have to sit in your easy chair a few hours from time to time, because it's, if you try to get around, it's kind of dizzy, and you're not dizzy, but it's so much presence. So you sit quietly in eternity. And as soon as you do this, you'll realize that you might have this or that to do. You'll have infinite time, no matter what conditions of the world are arrayed against you, around you, you'll live through them. In the scripture it says that one moment or one hour is like 1,000 years with the Lord, or 1,000 years is 1 hour, one day. The point is, it's timeless. You step completely outside of time. Now I'm right here. I see my mom, my friend, my Kathleen, my teacher, or Noreen, or whatever these different people I've known all through my life, and and we're meeting in a very quiet place. While in the body, I couldn't help and protect these so many people that I love that have this sense of humility and kindness, because they're always a victim in this world. I was the only one of many that I knew. I stepped through it all the time somehow, and it still hits me every day, every moment, but it's like, I don't care, because I don't believe, and I believe in God, and I believe in you. And I believe we can end the madness in a very short time as far as years are concerned. And I don't believe it, I absolutely know it. I know I would not do this if this were not the reason for me to be born. The madness has to end on our watch. This is a bad place if we believe in it. If we don't, then we can do many, many healings. We can use these remarkable gifts that are given of God so freely. From time to time, he speaks to us. And it's as though we're the only person in the world. For when God speaks to us, we are the only person in the world. And then you'll know what humility is. Because God is humble to us, if you can imagine that. At the same time, God is God. There's a dark force out there using these different psychological, emotional techniques to mess with your life 24 hours a day. And all you have to do is step back, you'll see it all, and it's over. And that's why the saints lived off in distant places, or little studio apartments around the world, or caves, or whatever, or out in the fields. They might be herding sheep, whatever. It doesn't matter. Or they lost themselves in mastering art or whatever, or being a dad or a mom. It's the same thing. Imagine being the mom and dad of everybody in the world that cares. And the moment you are spiritual, you'll merge with that sense. And then you'll know what caring is. And then you'll actually be able to help beyond the idea of an incarnation. You're going to help this person or that person get into school, or help, or this, or get over cancer. Imagine being able to remove all the possibility of any pain or trauma from another human being's life. Imagine doing it for everybody forever. And that's what illumination and spirituality and employing this divine wisdom that we're being aware of today. Imagine employing that wisdom and ending the illusion of there being a physical universe where there's not. This is heaven when you're awake. And that's what cosmic consciousness, illumination, enlightenment, nirvana, the beatific vision, the vision of God. That's what it entails. You look through it all. So spiritual people aren't weak, hiding up in the mountains, or they are so powerful, but they'll never say that. Because they're infinitely humble and contrite, and that's not going to help anyone saying I'm strong, or you have these gifts because you're not really here. You're not present in the body. You're present in your soul before him. Maybe it shouldn't be said, but God himself looks out through our eyes, through our senses. It's so wonderful. Can't you feel it? Can't we let go of all the subtle little temptations? So a little quiet time, meditation, exteriorizing the thinking mind, all the emotion, the sensorial field we allow to fall down in meditation light. All of our emotions, in other words, all of our sensory equipment, we just let it fall down deep into the abdomen. And then the thinking mind, I can look at the camera here, or on the floor, or like Bodhidharma, the great martial artist, and the man who started Chan Buddhism, which is Zen Buddhism, brought Buddhism from India to China and the Shaolin monasteries and all that, and the monks, and started martial arts and all the great all the samurai, they also did flower arranging and working in the fields and the gardens, and they knew more about the architecture that was close to the earth. That was very natural living in such environments. And it was worked on to make it, you're at one with nature, and then when you're at one with nature, you look through it to that presence that's nature beholds. And that is God. And that is you. Isn't it you? All we have to do is pull back in all of our feelers and sit quietly before Him. And then become Him. I don't mean to sound blasphemous, it's infinitely much more pure than that. God is God, we are that presence. It's very humbling to know Him. It's very humbling to know you. And as soon as we're quiet, we'll actually have people who will listen to me, to you, to us. They're called the ancient ones, the teachers, the holy ones. They'll be with you every moment of this enlivening experience, this awakening into these endless fields. Where we pierce through to distant universes that are all spiritual. It's not about a star system or a planet or a spaceship. That's still part of the physical environment. You see the point? You disappear through it all in enlightenment. And God's presence will be with you every moment. And the great ones will be with you. And it isn't like feeling my Uncle Irv or this. This is like identical to being aware of an infinitely subtle purity that the wise still call God. Thank you. Thank you, Greg. It's okay. We're through. Thank you for listening.